is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 127. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E, a.k.a. Lee James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew Easy, a.k.a. Eastradamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. The Fashionista, a.k.a. Chill E. Willie, a.k.a. Joe E. Chestnut, a.k.a. Eon Stockel. E, sitting here on a Wednesday evening, coming off of Austin FC2's first round U.S. Open Cup match last night. We will get into that. We will preview Austin FC's Orlando City bout on the road this weekend, but I'll start by asking you, as I always do, how you feeling, my friend?
Doing super well. Quite disappointed with the result last night, but not too much we can do about that. Gearing up for this Orlando matchup. I'm really excited for it. I think there's a big opportunity here with who they're going to be missing and what we're going to potentially roll out. So I'm looking forward to it. As we approach the end of the week, I always get a little more excited, a little more geared up that we're going to be watching our boys play. So we got a AG birthday coming up, a known North End listener and good old friend of ours. So we'll be watching and celebrating together. So, that's a beautiful thing, and I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, we'll also, of course, close out the pod with the nonsense, give a little best ball league update, of course, the bets and all that good stuff. Before we get into today's episode, want to remind you, if you've got 5 extra seconds and you haven't yet, go rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. It helps us grow the podcast. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit that thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, which you can also do by leaving a comment. We appreciate any and all of that you would do for us. Atone for your sins. Wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. A couple news items here to touch on before we start talking about Orlando City. I know you were on. You came out of the bullpen, short rest, did another match preview article as I'm slammed at work this week. But jumping back a few days, congratulations, John Gallagher, named to the MLS Team of the Match Day for his performance in last weekend's 2-2 draw against Philadelphia Union. Johnny, of course, played the full 90, recorded the team's go-ahead goal in the 58th minute, which was his 6th goal since the start of the 2023 season, the most among all MLS defenders. Also completed the most passes in the match at 51, 88% pass success rate there. Defensively, he had 7 recoveries, 3 interceptions, 3 clearances, and 1-2 ground duels. So well-deserved once again for Johnny. And I know, as you noted in the match preview article, hopefully now we're rolling. We're getting back towards all-star level Johnny after a little bit of a bumpy start to the season. But congrats to our number 17.
Super, super congrats to him. Bit of a shaky start in that Minnesota game, but nobody looked good. So it's great to see that he's responded. Well-deserved. He played a wonderful game the other night, and just keep it up, brother. We need it.
We do indeed. MLS Disciplinary Committee, Ian, handing out 3 fines following last week's match day. One of those 3 fines goes to our own Danny Pereira. The Disciplinary Committee fined Danny an undisclosed amount for violating the simulation embellishment policy, aka the flop rule, in the 51st minute of the match last weekend. I think we actually talked about this on the episode on Sunday, rewatching that match, saying, yeah, sold that a little bit, getting smacked in the face. There wasn't zero contact, but he went down a little easy. So undisclosed fine there. I'm hoping somebody in that locker room or in the front office is covering those fees for him, just because, we got to look out for our boys. I don't know. What do you think about that? We also got fines from Josh Atencio and Pedro Santos from DC. Both of those guys fined for not leaving the field quick enough. So Danny, the only flop fine rather, this week.
I mean, much rather would have seen that flop warning fine coming to Biru if he would have gone down in the box with that contact the other week. But they should have plenty of money. I'm assuming Aziel Jackson is funding their entire operation at this point. So yeah, don't worry about it, Danny.
Yeah, I
You
also
made the
didn't
shit list, Aziel Jackson. You've made the shit list.
Yeah, I think our listeners can tell.
He's
already.
on the list now.
Yeah,
I haven't seen Bossy, so it's
was-
all AZ Jackson now.
Yeah, we'll see him in a couple weeks. Another thing I did not realize after Saturday's match was that Coach Wolf got that yellow card for telling the fourth official, "You fucking nailed it, bud." I don't even remember what call it was or wasn't, rather. And it was unfortunate that I couldn't get that audio clean enough to make it a drop on here, because I think that would be a nice little segment, right? For the worst call of a match or something like that, the "you fucking nailed it, bud" call or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was funny to see. Shout out to our boy Paul for pointing that out in the group chat. I thought that was a pretty funny clip.
Yeah, and good on Coach, man. I mean, like, if these refs are going to be performing the way they've been performing, what are you going to do? You're going to scream, you're going to yell, you can throw a sarcastic little jab at them like that. So he's just standing up for his guys and trying to make sure that we're getting the calls that we deserve out there. So
yeah, that's what you want to see.
Yeah,
that's what you want to see. And for those that don't want to see that, I think he's one card away now from a suspension, because I think we have 2 bench cards already. So then you wouldn't have to see Josh for a match, and I know that would make a number of people happy.
There we go.
Maybe some of them were at the game last night.
Maybe.
Let's jump into the Orlando preview here, Ian. We're getting your work up on the screen here on the YouTube. So I'll toss it to you, since you were taking the lead here with the Lions this week. What are we expecting out of Orlando? Talk to me about this opponent.
I mean, as I mentioned in the little intro there, this is an really interesting matchup to me. They're going to be without a lot of super key contributors, and even on top of that, they're off to the worst start in club history. They're sitting on 1 point right now, -8 goal differential. They've flamed out of CCC with a loss to Tigres in their last matchup. The schedule that they've had to open the season has been incredibly difficult in regard to the frequency of games and the amount of rest that you're actually getting. In the article, I talk about how I would assume Austin's going to be going in there looking for, like, the goal to be, to get 3, but satisfied with just a point, and to probably employ our more defensive style of play, a bit of the horseshoe of sadness, as it has been called so many times. But with no Pedro Galese in goal, there is an opportunity to sneak 1 or 2 by Stajduer.
I like listening to you trying these pronunciations for once.
Mason Stajduer, who most recently was in some Next Pro matches. So this is a huge drop off from Galese, who hasn't been great to start the season. Obviously, they give up 5 goals to Inter Miami there and get really, really thoroughly embarrassed. This was a team that finished second in the Supporter Shield standings last season, had high expectations, brought in some key contributors in Nico Lodero as well as Luis Muriel. So while they're still dangerous, their backs are up against the wall. They are going to be without several players for international duty. And I know that I do believe that our strategy is going to be a more passive one. But if we can sneak 1 in here early and then just make this game ugly as possible for the rest of the match, we could walk away with 3 points. But they are really, really desperate for a win now, and to not fall farther back than they have already at this point in the short season that we've seen so far.
So I pulled up a little cheat sheet here. Mason Stajduer is how you say that.
Never would have got that.
Me either, without the help of the trusty MLSsoccer.com, which, who knows? If it's on that site, it could be a different pronunciation.
Could be a whole
it could be
person.
A 5'7" teenager from Brazil.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the lengthy list of absences here for Orlando City, right? International, not a break, right? International window this weekend, and we're not going to have Julio Cascante or Danny Pereira for their call-ups, but as you mentioned, 7 guys off this Orlando roster, including some of their most important players. You mentioned Galese being out of there, Duncan McGuire getting called up to the U.S. Olympic camp this weekend, and Facundo Torres, right? Their best player on paper, I think. Maybe you could make an argument with him and Muriel just based off Muriel's resume, but Torres still a top player in the league, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they're sitting on 2 goals right now in their MLS play, and they have not gotten any production from Muriel. Shout out to him because we drafted him in best ball there. So he's
it's just like the kiss of death getting drafted by us to the best ball team.
It's been a rough go, but not as rough as a go as Orlando has had to start this season. And now you're without Duncan McGuire, you're without Facundo Torres, you're without Galese, as I mentioned, and some other rotational pieces as well. So the bench will be thin. You should see a good amount of rotation here. Obviously the formation recaps on FotMob are not always the most reliable. They've been employing like a 4-2-3-1 sometimes, as well as a 4-4-2 at times. So it'll be interesting to see what they go with to roll out here. But again, they are thirsty, hungry for a win, as are we, because, just as I mentioned, that they're off to the slowest start in club history. So is Austin. So 2 teams that really want to get on the board, get that first win on the books and out of the way. It's going to be a good matchup. But I think there's a real opportunity here with how rotated they're going to be. They've already been struggling to find some sort of cohesiveness, to gel the new guys with their returning players. And obviously, we cannot forget about Austin legend Felipe, who will be doing his best to muck this game up as much as possible. I am ecstatic at the opportunity to see him and Diego potentially going at it, because those are 2 strong personalities that you will be seeing out there on the pitch. So expect Johan at the 6, somebody we're really going to have to rely on here to be in front of a back line that will be without Julio Cascante, as you mentioned, as well as Komanic, who is now injured. I believe we have no official diagnosis, correct?
I think we'll get, and again, Wednesday evening here in Central Texas, there should be media availability tomorrow after practice. So I think we'll get an unofficial update from Coach Wolf. He'll probably deem him doubtful or maybe even out. But again, Friday, we get these standardized injury reports now. So it would be a shock to see Komanic out there this weekend. Before we talk more about us, I did want to just jump back real quick to their results, because I think their MLS results to me, and maybe I'm just trying to hold on to our preseason prognostication where we had Orlando City as the number 1 team in the East throughout this regular season. I think they're going to be fine long term. Montreal is, to this point of the season, a better team than most, including us, expected. So that draw, which was sandwiched in between the 2 legs of their first round CCC matchup against Cavalry FC, short week through all these first 3 matches in the regular season, getting drubbed by Miami on the road. I mean, 2 Suarez goals, 2 Messi goals in that one, if I recall correctly. I don't think there's any shame in that. I did watch that match in full. They didn't look great, but I think you can at times be a little shell-shocked by that Miami team when they come out and punch you in the mouth, not once, not twice, 3 times in the first half hour. And then Minnesota, I know that's a home loss.
Yep.
But Minnesota's first in the West right now, and we know about Atlanta's firepower, especially at home on that turf there in Mercedes-Benz. So I just think this team, especially when they have all their guys, right? If we weren't in this international window, I would feel a lot worse about this matchup coming up this weekend. But I think it would be a mistake for our fan base as a whole. And of course, we know the team is not going to just look at their record and feel some type of way about this team. They know what they're up against. But I don't think we should look at this team with only 1 point. And if we get no points on Saturday, I don't think we should be like, oh, yeah, well, we gave this Orlando team their first win. We saw a lot of that last year at the beginning of the year when you're like 4 or 5 games in, and it's like, well, this team was below us and they beat us. It's like, well, yeah, small sample size, and this is still a very good team. Like you mentioned, 63 points last year. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. I don't know if you have anything else to add, because again, those last 3 games, you had 2 games against Tigres in there, and they drew the first one on the road.
Yeah.
Or no, excuse me, at home, and then you had to go play down south. So it's just been a whirlwind of a schedule for them, and obviously, like you said, hasn't really gone their way, but I still have a lot of respect for this club.
Absolutely. And there's no way that we can overlook anybody in this league
Yeah.
right now sitting where we're sitting. So I don't think the players are going into that with that expectation that this is going to be some sort of cakewalk. You got to take this as serious as possible because, again, we're without a win here, and you look at our schedule and who we've played, and it's pretty comparable across the board outside of the outlier of the firepower of Miami. We've played 4 consecutive CCC team, correct, at this point? This is our 4th consecutive.
This would be our 4th, yeah.
So, like, we've played some really solid clubs right now, and this is a solid club, again, who is very, very hungry for a win. So I'm looking forward to it. And, again, it's been hard to kind of gauge what to expect because they are missing so many guys who are very good players. And whenever you're rotating a keeper like that and you're going from Galese to, we'll just call him Mason,
Stidehar.
I just saw Dune 2. It sounds like one of the
okay.
Sounds like one of the houses in there. So I'm not too worried about Mason. And again, man, if you get an early one and we can hunker down, you got to feel good about it. So I'm looking forward to it, man. We've seen good progression from this team since the start of the season in the first half with Minnesota. So I hope that we can continue moving forward here. Hopefully 10 has had a good week of training, getting back into the groove a little bit, getting that rust off. And once he's back into the full go, that's the engine of everything that we want to do. Everything offensively is going to go through him. And we still have yet to get a full glimpse of him working off of Diego working off of him. So I'm very excited for that. And I don't anticipate a start from him, but seeing him off the bench and maybe like a 30, 25-minute capacity would be really great. And if we can hold on to up until that point, until we can get him out there on the pitch, then I got to feel good about our chances, man. So I'm just looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would be surprised after Coach Wolf's comments post game on Saturday, where he said he didn't expect Seba to play much more than he did. Like, I think my best hope right now, of course, if we see him in that starting group, then great.
Yeah.
But I think best hope for me right now feels like playing the entire second half, getting that last 45 in there, which I would absolutely take.
See, but that's going to be interesting, right? Because we're already going to be thin on that back line. I'm anticipating a start for Heinz Ike here. You're going to, I'm assuming, see Biru in the starting lineup again with the Komanic injury. So, how are you going to use these substitution windows? Because Biru is not fit for 90. I think that's pretty evident up until this point when we've seen from him. So you're going to have to use a sub there. That itself it begets a question, because who are we going to rotate in there? Obviously, we saw the performance from Hector off the bench last week, and that's probably where I'm going and where I'm leaning towards, because the success that we had as soon as he came in was really fantastic. I'm not expecting that every single time Hector gets out there to play.
Sure.
But we are going to have to use these substitutions pretty wisely, because, again, are we going to see some Gomez? Is Heinz Ike ready for a full 90? I don't know. We haven't seen him.
I still think we see center back Alex Ring before we see Tony Gomez in there with the first team.
I mean, there's one guy who said Alex Ring was CB4, and that should be, and I got laughed at, but we'll leave it at that. So, and then again with the substitution pattern, obviously we've seen when Danny has been pushed up the field that we have really struggled, not just offensively but defensively as well, which is just equally as concerning and baffling, that we can't get him back in defensive position as well. We're out of position. He looks uncomfortable. So how are you going to rotate this midfield if you're only getting 45 minutes out of Seba? Who's starting at the 10? These are all some really important questions. In the article, I hint at maybe sliding Diego Rubio back to that 10, letting Giassi get in there, hopefully get a little more hold-up play for him, particularly if we're playing a more defensive style with that horseshoe. There's a lot of questions for the coaching staff, man. So I'm interested to see how they're going to respond to it. And again, I know I've said it 4 or 5 times at this point, but there is a big opportunity here to steal 3 points on the road.
Yeah, I agree. We'll get to the predictions in a minute. But given who they are missing, and the success we've seen from Austin in being able to kind of muck some of these games up, slow them down, keep the opponents from having too many high value opportunities, right? Those big chances created. We've mentioned before, obviously, those shot maps from the opponents, specifically Seattle, St. Louis, a lot of those shots coming from outside of the area. So there's no doubt there's an opportunity here.
Yeah.
In terms of that fullback rotation, I think I would rather too. I think we see Owen Wolf there before we see Hector.
Okay.
But at the same time, Hector absolutely earned another shot here to get out there. And, I think the maximum we can see out of him is probably 45 minutes.
That's what I said in the article as well.
Yeah,
he's not going to be able to go for anything more than that.
Yeah, and it's just the reality of being an older player in this league, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially on a back line that's going to be taking on guys like Muriel, who just came out or came over from Atalanta and being extremely productive overseas still. So we'll see, man. I guess the last thing I would ask you, what do you think we'd do at the 10 here, right? Because we saw against St. Louis, we saw Diego behind Jassy, and I know Diego was kind of talking about him being like almost a second forward, second striker, just kind of playing behind him, but he was so active in that game, both on the ball and without. And then we see him pushed up further, or playing at the 9 rather, last week against Philly. How do you think that breaks down in the offensive half? And do we see Rigoni in the starting 11?
Yes. Rigoni, okay. I think, will be in the starting 11 because look, man, we're bringing the players that we have available to Orlando. Mm-hmm. Cascante is not one of them. Danny is not one of them. So I do think that we'll see. I would like to see personally Diego at the 10 to start. And then if you get that 45 minutes, right, and then you can get Seba in there at halftime, push Diego up after that. We're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to adapt. Some dudes might be in positions that they're not necessarily super comfortable in, but that's what we have right now. One interesting thing that I did see doing some research and stuff for this match was that Orlando, despite being -8 goal differential, had a positive expected goals in the formula of expected goals versus expected goals allowed, which was interesting to see. So they are creating some chances. They're not necessarily bearing a lot of things, but at the same point, like we're going to have to be comfortable in some uncomfortable situations with our starting 11 here. So expect a heavy dose of Alex, heavy dose of Johan, real focus on possession. And if we can just hold the line until 10 can get into this game, I really do like our chances. And that's not me overlooking Orlando and thinking that they're, that they are directly correlated to their record at this point in time. Because as you mentioned, a very tough draw with Tigres there. So not overlooking them at all, but I do think that we have a good opportunity to steal 3 points here.
Good call out by you on that FOTMob XG model. On that model, Orlando City underperforming their XG by 4.3 goals and overperforming their goals against by 3.7. So yeah, certainly in that small 4-match sample size, some positive regression expected for Orlando. Hopefully that holds off one more week. And I won't mention the team that's at the bottom of that model in expected points because it's everybody's favorite team. So anything else for you before we make the predictions and move on?
I'm still praying at the altar that we can get anything out of Rigoni here. It just any sort of positivity out of him, an assist, I'd lose my mind. So hopefully he can step up, man. You get another chance. Look, man, he's here. It is what it is. He's on the fucking roster. We can't get rid of him at this point in time. So he's got to do what he's got to do to help this club in any way possible. So I do anticipate a start for him. But other than that, give me 2-1 Austin.
All right, 2-1 Austin, and I'll be the party pooper. I've got 1-0 Orlando. I think we grinded out, and near the end, little bit of a letdown there. We let one in after sustaining what I think is going to be, at Seattle levels of shot disparity there. But again, we also think we're going to have 10 in there again off the bench. So late magic may come Austin's way as well. And of course, I would much rather be wrong with that prediction. As much as we got the gimmick of you not picking draws or losses here, I rarely pick a loss either. I just think this Orlando team, even as shorthanded as they are, going to be able to get right this weekend. And I hope I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, the North End kiss of death is a very real thing. So hopefully we might have to change the entire shtick here and start predicting losses.
We'll see how it goes. 2-1 victory for E, 1-0 loss for me. And now we will move on into last business day, where Austin FCito took on 4-0 SC last night. And we're just going to let these highlights run as we discuss this match. It ended up being a shootout loss after extra time. So everybody was out there for an additional hour on Tuesday night. You see the lineup here. A couple changes in there. I think Antonio Gomez probably with the first team this weekend, getting another short-term loan agreement, because not only was he replaced in the starting lineup by Mason Miller, he was not active in this game. So we had Mason in there paired with Sal, the center back pairing. Obviously Mason Miller, U17 guys, signed on that amateur agreement last week. We see Deonda and Steve, the fullback pairing. Alonso at the 6, Brian Ariano in front of him, Micah in the middle. And then we get the CJ Fodre, Jimmy Farcar winger pairing with John Santillan up top in place of Sebastian Piñol, who was active but on the bench after getting a red card in the opening regular season match. So what was your takeaways from this lineup?
That this is clearly not the team that we had last year. This is much more of a unit that is about development, is about progressing younger players into larger roles. I do think, and I don't, this is speculation, I do think Utley penalized Sebastian Piñol for his red card in the last game. And I think he got a little too cute because we clearly did not take this team very seriously. Jonathan Santillan really struggled. He was really, really poor on the evening, and it ended up costing us. Damian Loss is not in the net. Marcus Alstrup is not Damian Loss whatsoever. We'll get into it more here. My thoughts on the lineup were, even if this is the lineup you're rolling out, you should beat this team. And the chances were there. We couldn't finish our dinner, as our good friend Brian, North End Pirate, continuously was screaming out towards the Austin FCito boys there, and he was right. So I think we got a little too cute, man.
Yeah.
Piñol comes on and he's right off the gates impactful and threatening and dangerous and obviously one of the best players on the pitch here. So I just think we got a little too cute with it.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree. We certainly don't. Obviously, the team is way different, right? Youth movement is in full effect, but we're still missing Bobasi. We're still missing Shaq Toure. Anthony Garcia was not active for this game after starting last Friday against Tacoma. So there are still some more experienced, especially those first two, more familiar names on this roster. I know our buddy Landon from Moon Tower was saying that he saw Bobo last Friday there at the pitch and looked like he had some sort of injury going on maybe. So hopefully those guys, whatever's going on, recover soon and are active for this team, because again, it's not that I'm demanding this team be a success year in and year out, but they just raised the floor, right?
Yep. And I mean, I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know if, necessarily that this is our main goal here is to be winning cup game, like winning the cup again, as opposed to more of a youth movement. One thing that was very stark was that there is not a vocal leader on this team that
Mm-hmm.
we had last year in Captain Joe Hafferty,
Yeah.
who was as good a leader as you can really get at this next pro level. Somebody who was always encouraging, always reminding the guys of who they were and what they had done and how they had worked. And it was very absent in this with this 11. Micah, obviously very skilled, very talented player. He's young. It's hard to command that type of respect from these older guys when you're in that position. It was Ramirez with the armband.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm a huge Alonso Ramirez fan. I really really like him. But again, there was just no tangible examples of vocal leadership out there, particularly when you go down to this club early. And now the heat has really been turned up because you're expected to beat this team. There was some
Mm-hmm.
big faces in the crowd too watching this game. Mr.
Yep.
Burrell himself was there. Um, Mr. Precourt himself was there as well, and I
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed myself in front of Roto pretty pretty handedly, smiling at him in awe as he walked up the stairs, and him looking at me incredibly confused. I know we have some injuries. Doesn't matter. Should have won this game. Jimmy got quite the ovation, quite the love, just for being out there. And
Yeah.
everyone wants him to succeed. I absolutely want him to succeed, and I don't want this to come off as any sort of hate or anything along those lines. But he should be consistently beating a 4-0 FC fullback more often than he was. And
Yeah.
his speed was really on display, and he had some really nice touches. Every now and then things escaped him. But you see here, point blank chance, the second one that we had missed in that short amount of time. So it was a very disappointing evening for these boys. And, it's a tough early exit, but you got to move on from it.
I don't know if we could hit that 4-0 player on the goal line again if we tried to from that range. But that's what goes into, and you see on the screen there if you're watching on the YouTube, Sal getting the equalizer there off the mic, a free kick from the left side of the box. So I will say, I second everything you said about the lack of visible vocal leadership on this team. I second what you said about our guy Jimmy, right? You're absolutely right, where everybody wants Jimmy to succeed. Everybody wants all these guys to succeed. But I think, and we were saying this before this match even kicked off to those around us in the stands, like, I think we had said the hype on Jimmy has gone way too far. And I think it took about 15 minutes for that to set in for at least some segment of the people who were in attendance or watching on the stream. Because I agree with you, man. Like, and this is not to discredit this 4-0 team because they had some solid players. They freaking battled, man.
Yep, they played hard.
And they deserved that win at the end of the day.
Particularly with how we ended that game. Just
Yes.
losing our freaking minds.
But at the same time, to your point, if we're talking about these are the guys that are maybe on the fringe of the first team and we want to see a guy like CJ, we want to see a guy like Jimmy get minutes, I think Jimmy especially. I got to see a lot more than I did last night. And it was only like 60-ish minutes, right? Those are his first minutes on either team since the preseason. And to CJ's credit, I thought as the game went on, he grew more and more into it, and you saw him being a little bit more communicative with his teammates, and I think everybody on the Austin side benefited from that in the second half onwards. But, it's got to be from the start, right? And this is, it's so early in the season for these guys as well. I mean, how many of the guys on our side, was this the biggest game that they've ever played in? And I'm saying that knowing that these guys played in the next Pro Cup final last year, but this is the US Open Cup. Mm-hmm. And I know that on paper, this opponent isn't, a world beater, but the stakes in this one, combined with the atmosphere that the fans generated, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man, you just got to perform better in a scenario like this. Because at the end of the day, some of these guys are amateurs, but they've decided to sign those contracts with a pro team. And the majority of these guys are professionals here on Austin FC too. So at the end of the day, like we said at the beginning, it's a disappointing loss.
It's a very disappointing loss. And even just to touch back onto the Jimmy situation, like
Mm-hmm.
the man that he was matched up with drew an early yellow and got injured. And we were still having a difficult time consistently beating him up that right side there. So, I don't know if we took this opponent lightly. They sure as hell really wanted this game more than we did. And I thought that their keeper played pretty exceptional. I thought he was really good given
Yeah.
the chances that he, was up against. But at the end of the day, there's only one team to really blame for this, and that's us. We had plenty of opportunities to put this game away, and some really, really head scratching, confusing mental errors by this team, particularly in the extra time here. Alstrup loses his mind. Anthony Garcia, I don't know what in the world this man was thinking.
Chris Garcia.
Chris Garcia, sorry.
Yeah.
What he was thinking on 3 or 4 plays that were just baffling. Because, you saw here on the highlights, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, they go down a man, they draw a red in like the 80th minute, right? And we play an extra 30 on top of that, and you can't you can't put another one away, and it's like you can't put this team away, and it was very disappointing, man. But in the end of the day, it's one game, and these boys got to move on and grow from it. See Pignot getting the goal here. He was impactful right away, and I'm never a fan of getting a little too cute with your lineup if you think you're better than another team, because you got to go out there and prove it, particularly in this sport. You can outplay somebody. I mean, we outshot them, 19-6, something like that.
Yeah,
some absurd number. So it's like, man, all the opportunities were there to finish this, and we didn't get the job done.
Yeah. And on Chris Garcia, I'm with you, man. Like some of those, I mean, I'm hoping it was a cross that looked like a shot right on the end line. I'm hoping it was a cross that looked like a shot, 2 of them from like near midfield. I hope he gets better soon, man. And I think he's going to be out a while with that hamstring because he got pulled early and he couldn't continue. And that hamstring injury was a huge factor in why Austin concedes the second goal here, literally with 3 seconds left in stoppage time. And I was a little bit confused, and maybe just because I'm biased because I'm an Austin FC2 fan here, but when that goal is scored, not only has Chris Garcia just been taken off for the injury, and I understand like if we didn't have a sub window left or any subs left, I think we had one left, but I'm not sure. We don't have a replacement on, but we also have Anthony De Anda off the pitch because there was blood on his jersey. So he's over there getting the blood jersey from the trainers. And to me, it just doesn't seem like it. And like the answer is probably just, well, that's soccer. Like that's how we do it. But
yeah,
we add like there's stoppage time. We add time for delays like that. So like the team who has rightfully earned being up a man, right? Austin. Now Austin is down a man and they concede with 3 seconds left. It just like, can we not add an extra minute to allow De Anda to get back on the field? So at least then the teams are on level terms with players on the field there.
I mean, it's
that
ridiculous.
Just seems, and again, if that's the case with soccer, I get it. It's fucking stupid if that's the case.
It can be both things. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. It wasn't like De Anda was time wasting. He wasn't faking an injury. He's got blood on his jersey, man. We got to be able to get the man back on the pitch if we don't have a substitution window, if we don't have any subs left. So, all of those things considered, you still got to finish this game and win it.
He's got blood on his jersey from a foul that wasn't called.
Yep, it was awful, man. And I also don't understand why we can't get that right. I don't know if it'll ever change. But again, you should have won this game.
Last thing I want to talk about, last guy I want to talk about is Marcus Alstrup, because it has been a rough start for him here in Austin. And I hope that he's able to block out some of that noise, because man, I see fans like, I mean, I was disappointed last night. Like, we were annoyed walking out of there. Should have won that match. We always want to see our guys win, but some of the takes were just so intense, and I think a little bit over the top. Like, the kid, he's a young goalkeeper. This is a developmental league, and Damian Loss was one of, if not maybe the best player in the league last year, so he's got huge shoes to fill. I'm not excusing the putting the ball in play and then picking it back up for an indirect free kick in your own box. And he was shaky at other points too. Like here, we just saw the equalizer there, 123rd minute. Damian Loss comes out and attacks that ball, right?
Yep.
And I don't even have to say Loss. I think a keeper who's playing with a little bit more confidence gets to that and disrupts that play to where it's not a goal. So he's got a lot of time here to bounce back. But it was a tough one for him last night as well.
It was a very tough one. You see the highlight there of them getting that equalizer, and that brother, that is your space. Like that is your space. You command that space. You control that space. And he just didn't want any part of that smoke. Didn't want any part of that action.
Yeah.
And we can't write the kid off, man. And also you have to understand who he's, again, the shoes that he is the mitts he's trying to fill back there.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing for him. So, keep your head up, Marcus. Long season, brother. We got to put this one in the rear view now. It's over. There's plenty to take away from this from a learning standpoint. And this is the point of Austin FC too, learning, development, and growth. So I hope that he takes away what he needs to take away from this and bounces back in a big way. Now for some positives. Great to see our unofficial, official, unpaid correspondent, Chad America, at the game there. Great to see you, buddy. The support there was fantastic as well. Obviously hanging out with Landon, Big Fudge, whole bunch of good people there. Wish we could have walked away a little happier, but them's the breaks.
Yeah, still a fun time with everybody up there in the stands. Got to see, Aggie and Profe and Peach and Mike and, everybody up there. So yeah, man. And at the end of the day, again, credit to Foro.
Yep.
Because I think they deserved it. They battled even a man down against the crowd, against the energy. So congrats to them. And Austin FC2 now gets, like you said, this is what this team is for. Developmental learning lessons as young players, as a group that is just now coming together over the first few weeks, of preseason, adding some of these guys on amateur agreements. So next up, man, Dynamo Dos next Thursday on the road. So a big one coming up, a great opportunity to bounce back and get their first win.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you did take the time there to shout out 4-0 FC or FC, whatever, 4-0 and give them their props because they wanted it more than us. And they battled that whole 120. They fought the whole way through. And, you see a couple of chances that they missed as well that very easily could have been goals. So it's in the past. We close the chapter. We move on to the next chapter.
And that next chapter for us, is the nonsense here on Wednesday. After 4 weeks in the Verde Best Ball League, Phil West still on top, and not just on top, but extending his lead in the Verde Best Ball League. 52 points in week 4, back-to-back dubs for Verde all day. He had 5 guys in doubles. One of them can't even count because of how we calculate the scores, but he gets 12 from Cucho, 10 from Yakumakis, 10 from Santi Rodriguez. He got 9 from Steven Moreira on his back line. Phil, 52 points, flying. And we got to see Phil last night too, and he was talking some shit. we were telling him, man, we need you to have some injuries. He goes, oh yeah, I have some already. And he does. Drafted Ache. He won't be playing for a while. Phil's still taking care of business.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to see him for sure. And long season, brother. Don't worry.
Yeah. Verde Pendant, 45, second on the week, second in the standings as well. 18 points back of Phil. Moon Tower, 36 on the week, 157. They're in 4th. We Are Austin TV, Texas Ring of Fire, and the North End Podcast, all on 31 points in week 4. 31 points, 3 straight weeks for Texas Ring of Fire. I don't know what's going on there, but that's some interesting numbers.
That is interesting. Also, it's interesting to see Verde Pendant with a 3 instead of a 2 next to their name there.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, that's.
Am I reading that wrong?
No, that's my bad. That's
okay.
That's the
Sorry,
old. That's the graphics department. We'll talk to them. We'll reprimand them, and we'll get those numbers right next week. So Verde Pendant, if you're looking at the graphic there, 2nd place, 3rd place for We Are Austin TV. And yeah, North End Podcast 109 bringing up the rear, still 19 points back of the field, but we did get 2 goals last weekend, which doubles our total for the entire season. 4 goals for the team.
Let's go, baby. Once we get Seba back, man, come on. Come on.
Yeah, just warming it up here.
Come on.
So we can move on now. Close it out with the bets from last week, and we weren't flying as high last week as we did the week prior, but we still salvaged a little bit to keep us in the black for the season. We mentioned on Sunday how Philly, sitting on 5 corners with 40 minutes left in the match, doesn't get another one. So we dropped the hammer on Philly over 5.5 corners last week, so that's 2 units lost. Galaxy also couldn't come through with a win, but we did get FC Cincinnati plus 185, Atlanta United minus 115. And then the goal props don't go great, but we do hit Matthias Kokoro from Montreal plus 275, Joe Paintsel from the Galaxy plus 200. So minus 2.53 units on the week, but we're still plus 0.77 units on the season. So we will take that and we will try to turn it back around this week. And a couple of the places we're looking, I know we were discussing before the pod, Austin plus 370 at Orlando, at least for the vibes, right? And by the time we get to Friday, that might be closer to plus 400. So considering that this week after passing the last 2.
Like I said, I think there's a real opportunity here with how rotated they're going to have to be. Yeah, particularly in that keeper, particularly in the net, man. You get a spill, something, a misread, a misplay. When I was doing the article, we lead the league in PKs conceded right now, so that's great. And I was thinking about us losing that corners bet, get the double dick kick, because not only did we lose out on the 6th corner, which we would have hit the hammer with, we also conceded PK at the same time. So North End Podcast, kiss of death, very real thing. Let us know if there's anybody you hate. We'll put some money on them.
Anybody we need to curse, or you need to curse, we got you. Couple other spots, just trying to take advantage of this international list and the betting market right now. I don't think Messi's going to play for Miami this weekend, but I'm pretty sure Suarez and Busquets and Alba will be available. So they are taking on Red Bulls in New Jersey, and the Red Bulls, no Coronel in net, no Forsberg, no John Tolkien. So Miami plus 200 on the road, strongly considering that. Also Toronto, hosting Atlanta. You say, whoa there, buddy. But no Almada. No Yorgos, a number of other role players also out for Atlanta. So considering Toronto at home, plus 120, that's in our sights as well. And similar thoughts there on Portland hosting Philadelphia, who has 6 or 7 guys out for international duty as well. So trying to take advantage of some of those absences here with the bets. And again, Friday evening is when we post those bets articles, lock them in, on the sites and the like. So,
that's excellent work by the scouting department there. That's a lot. I like all those. Those seem pretty juicy.
Yeah. And so we also, of course, have to continue to peruse the goals market. It's tough for me if he's active, even off the bench, to pass up Luis Suarez right now at plus 170. So maybe pairing that with the Inter Miami win is something that we can do. Our boy Seba, plus 280 to score, going to come off the bench, but PK taker, we know he can strike quickly. Maybe not the time yet for Seba, but we're keeping an eye on those numbers. A couple other spots, obviously always looking to go back to the Galaxy, even on the road here. Our boy Paintsel, who has come through for us twice, he's plus 280. Dejan Joveljic, who I think is leading or second in the league in goals scored so far, if I'm not mistaken. He's plus 210 on the road here, so potentially looking to go back to the Galaxy as well.
I like all that.
Anything else for you before we get out of here?
No, sir. Let's get this freaking dub.
Yeah, we need one.
Yeah, man.
That'll do it, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 127 of the North End Podcast. We will be back on Sunday evening, recapping Austin FC's match against Orlando City SC and talking about everything else Austin FC that happens between now and then. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. We'll talk to you on Sunday night. Until then, he's And I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.